Megan.
Hi, Rosa. How are you? Ready to do a live?
Yes.
Ooh. Hey, viewers. How's everybody doing this evening? And welcome to Nespeakiw live YouTube show. And we have a good topic for you today. Today, we are talking about how to practice your English and learn about American history and culture at the same time with one simple tactic by listening to speeches. I'm Megan, and I'm here with Rosa.
Hi. Hello, I'm Rosa. I also work with Megan, and I'm an advocate of public speaking.
So we have the expert here today. And Rosa, why is looking at speeches a good way to practice English?
So as an educator view, listening is one of the core skills. So you have to practice to do a lot of listening in order to improve your language skills in general. So listening itself is important. Then listening to speeches is easier than listening to normal conversations because normally it's hard to pick up on who's speaking, what are they speaking about. But in a speech, the subject is clear, the language is clear, the person is speaking in front of people, so he is more conscious, or she is more conscious of the way she speaks, the words she uses. And I find that speeches are the best. So whether it's live speeches by presidents or famous people to TED Talks, all of these kind of speeches can help you learn a lot of words. One, two, like pick up on the inspiration, the emotions, the way people pronounce certain words in different ways, and at the same time improve your listening skills. The more you listen, the better you understand.
I love that. And I love what you said about how when people give a speech, it's really deliberate. Oftentimes people are speaking more slowly. And I also think that looking up speeches, it gives you this little glimpse into some of the most effective ways that language has been used in history. And we have at our fingertips the ability to Google the greatest speeches of all time and study and look at how was that language used. And a lot of speeches have transcripts too. So we can look online and you can have side by side what words were used. So we'll talk a little bit today about how to use this method to learn English. And we're going to look at some examples of different speeches. Rosa and I will share some examples that we love, that we think that you'll be able to learn from too. And we'll talk about what makes them such great examples of speaking and what we can learn from them. We're also going to use today to highlight February is Black History Month in the United States. So what this means is that during Black History Month, we celebrate and we honor the contributions and sacrifices of Black Americans who have helped shape the United States and make it what it is. So today we will look at speeches by famous Black Americans, both historic and modern day. We'll give you some resources of other Black Americans that you can look up their speeches as well. And so we'll do a combination of looking at this method for using English, but also learning some nice history. So without further ado, Rosa, should we look at our first speech? What do you think?
Yes. So we've chosen somewhat one of the most famous speeches in history. Maybe everyone on the planet right now knows it because it's one of the best speeches ever made when it comes to like such a social issue, when it comes to racism. This speech is by Martin Luther King Jr. It's his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, and it was delivered during a civil rights activist movement. We will listen to Martin Luther King recite his "I Have a Dream" speech and then discuss it together and see what lessons we could learn through it.
This nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
So as you can hear, Megan, we just listened to a snippet of the I Have a Dream speech. As an American, what do you think makes this speech so special for the American people more specifically?
That's such a good question. I think some of the power of it, a lot of the power of it lies in the context of it. I mean, Martin Luther King Jr. gave this speech to over 250,000 people. But it's really powerful that you don't even hear the crowd, right? Everyone is just attuned to him. And I think part of that is the message is very clear, what he is saying and how he's saying it. It's very positive. It's a really compelling message. I have a dream. In the face of, I mean, there's a lot of really difficult periods of US history, but definitely in an extremely difficult period where people were fighting for civil rights and during the civil rights movement, to share that powerful of a positive vision is just impeccable. Rosa, just with especially your public speaking experience, what do you think makes this speech effective?
One of the ways that Martin Luther King used his language to attract the crowd was repetition. In the beginning, it was, I have a dream, and he recited his dreams, which are not dreams, but really goals. And you can feel the passion and the assertiveness behind them, that like he knows what he wants and this is what he wants, but he's saying, I have a dream. That was beautiful. And then he transitioned to let freedom ring. And he described all these places in America where he wants to see freedom. These repetition tend to catch the attention of the audience. You can't let go because you want to hear, because every time he repeats, there's something new to listen to, and you are very well involved into understanding where he wants to go with this speech. So that's one of the techniques he used to attract his audience. Another technique that I've noticed is when he emphasizes on certain words, when he says some words with a lot of emphasis, showing them that these are the important words, from I have a dream to where he describes places in the US, white boys, black boys, like these words are highly emphasized. Like he's showing us that these are the words you should focus on. And this is how the brain works. When you emphasize something with your voice, with your tone, the brain is like, oh, this is important. Let me listen to this. So yeah, lots of techniques, but these are the ones that I picked up on really easily.
Definitely. Viewers, I would be really curious to hear your impressions of the I Have a Dream speech, why you think this speech is effective. So put a comment in. We would love to hear from you about your reactions to the speech. I think another tool that it uses is imagery. When MLK is describing his dream, we are literally picturing the dream. And that's really a powerful tool to have your audience imagine something. And another example of that, and this too, I think, is where you can start to listen to specifics, to learn different words that might be a little bit unique. So one example is the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. So we're picturing that heat, we're picturing an oasis of justice. It's a really powerful image. And maybe we're picking up on, oh, what's this word oasis? That's pretty unique. Maybe I could use that word.
That's one of the other ways we can use speeches, because when people are crafting speech, it's a craft, they sit and they think about it and they work on it. So every word is meant, every word is carefully studied and put together. So there are lots of new words. And I myself have learned many words through watching TED Talks and other speeches.
Definitely. And I want to ask too more about, your experience with a public speaking program, but I love that you just point out an amazing point that a speech is a good example to look at the language because it is so carefully crafted. Rosa, how do you write speeches? Like, what does that process look like for you?
So first and foremost is I need to really know my subject. And I feel like knowing your subject is a very important key to make it a good speech, because when you speak about something you don't fully understand, chances are you're going to space out, not find words, and so on. So for me, it's first get to know my subject. If I know it already, then good, start working on my speech. But if it's something new, I usually start by working on it, getting the research, doing lots of reading, listening, watching other videos, or so on, whatever resources I have. Once I feel done, I have enough knowledge about my subject and I have the subject matter handled, I move to working on my speech. So for me, research and knowledge about the subject is the first step. My second step is to get to know my audience, because I feel that determines the language, the way I'm going to speak, my energy, that determines a lot. So know your audience. I always do that. So are they young? Are they old? Are they professionals? Are they just hipsters? So, different languages work for different audiences. So I get to know my audience. Then based on the knowledge and the audience, I get to write my bullet points. Now, I am an advocate of not writing a full speech, but only very important bullet points that are well crafted. So I write my bullet points and then I use them to speak truly from the heart. And I feel that's what people connect to more than anything else. How about you, Megan?
I love your method. I have a similar method, but I think something it's cool to highlight for our viewers is that there's really no one way to write a speech. And also I think of what we think about as a speech has a lot of different meanings. Like to me, even giving sometimes a bullet point or two in a meeting or having an important conversation, that can be a little bit like a speech. And I'm using some of these kind of techniques. True. So it doesn't always have to be the March on Washington. Like we can be giving speeches in day-to-day life and practice these skills. And viewers, if you have any questions about how to write speeches or learn from speeches, put them in the chat and we would love to answer them and discuss them. For me, sometimes I've written everything out. But I think there can be some pressure to memorize everything. I found a helpful technique can be to memorize just the very beginning and the closing of what I want to say. Because I think sometimes that can be the hardest part of what I get caught up on is when you go out onto the stage and you have that moment where you're a little bit scared in front of everybody. So it's helpful to know, okay, I've already memorized my beginning. And same thing when you're like, oh, it's time to stop. Like they're signaling that I need to stop my speech. And then you can just go to your part that you memorized to end too.
Yes. And speaking of timing yourself is very important. So once you have your bullet point done and ready, put yourself on a timer and speak and see how much it would take. See if that's enough for the people you are speaking at the event at, or if you want to have to make it shorter or longer. Time is an essence for speeches.
Definitely. Karima says, how about using keywords during the speeches? Ooh, that's a good technique.
That's the most important thing. In every speech you make, there are always things to stress, and that those are your keywords. So you have to use them. If you're speaking about a scientific subject, you need to know the keywords of the scientific subject. If you are speaking about a philosophical concept, same, keywords are important. So you need to know them, you need to understand them, and you need to know how to pronounce them very correctly, because those are the core of your speech.
Definitely. Another good question from Cartoon R. How can I speak as fast as you two? I'll give a secret is that you don't have to.
You never have.
Actually, there's some pretty cool research that's been done that when someone is speaking in an accent or speaking slowly, we actually pay more attention to what they're saying. So like, for example, if you have a professor who has an accent, a lot of times we learn more from them because we are paying more attention to how they speak.
Yeah.
So
And the speed is not important. Like, this is what people don't usually look over, like they don't pay attention to. Language is a mean of communication. So what's important is that you understand me, I understand you, and we have this conversation. We get to know each other, we get to know the problem, to solve the problem, to have a conversation. This is the important part. My accent is the speed of my speech is actually not important when it comes to communication. But if I want to give you an advice, I would say listening. I felt like listening helped me a lot. The more I listened, the more confident I was when it comes to speaking. And when you are confident and you don't think and try to find the words, you will speak faster than someone looking for words one by one. Like, you will be more fluent. And with fluency comes a little bit of speed, but it's not important.
Exactly. Abdul Karim, you've got it. The problem is confidence, especially when it's not your first spoken language. So that's where practicing can come into play, building up that confidence, especially if you know it's a speech you're going to give. You can practice in front of other people. I do the classic practice in front of a mirror until the point where I'm like, I know I've got this. Nobody can mess with me. I'm totally confident in what I'm about to say.
Yeah, I film myself.
Or if I'm not confident, I pretend I am.
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
Rosa, tell us more about starting iSpeak. So Rosa started a whole public speaking program and has trained a lot of people about how to do public speaking. So tell us more about that.
So the idea behind iSpeak comes from the child Rosa, who wouldn't shut up. You know, I was the very loud kid who had opinions. My parents had problems with me. They were like, what's wrong with this kid? And then I was always outspoken. So I was the class attorney. I defended everyone. Even I grew up with the idea that speaking up is important. But when I got to university specifically, I saw that not every kid is outspoken. Some kids struggle with speaking in front of other kids. And I was like, wow, well, we need a little bit of help. Then I went to the US through the MEPI program, MEPI Student Leader. We got trained. And with this program, we were 20 or 25 of the best kids in the Middle East. I was with crème de la crème of the Middle East. So I was like, whoa, these kids are amazing. And then at the end of our program, that we were asked to make a speech in front of the head of a very important NGO, and everybody was freaking out. So I was like, so even the kids who are super amazing, doing amazing things, very engaged, still struggle with public speaking. So I came back to Algeria with this drive of starting something that would help people speak in public and confidently and easily. So that's where iSpeak came. So I came back to Algeria and I started the program. And I actually do teach through speeches, something I didn't realize until we brought up this subject. So I take very specific skills, soft skills. I give them lectures, workshops, or research about it. And then each team gives a speech about this subject. And by the end of the I Speak program, each person would have given 6 speeches. And trust me, practice makes perfect. By the 6th speech, people are like confident, they're speaking, they love it. So yeah, we have used that method with over 1,000 Algerian, and we've done great work. I'm very impressed by the people by the end of each event.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing. And what I would say to our viewers too is that, even if you're not part of a formal program like that, you can create a program. And I mean, you can say, like, set a challenge for yourself and say, I'm going to give 5 speeches.
Yes.
And work on your different speeches, and then pull together your friends, create an atmosphere where you're giving your speeches, ask for feedback on your speech. So you can do the same thing, even if you're not part of a formal program.
And I always tell my students, my friends, like, surround with yourself with people you can have deep conversations with. And for me, a deep conversation is as good as a speech, because you are expressing your emotion, your ideas, you're expressing yourself. So whenever you have the opportunity to be around people where you can discuss something deep and hard to understand and try to understand it together, that's the best way you can learn and develop your speaking. 1, public speaking. 2, and it's a segue to making a speech. So surround yourself with people who can have these conversations with you.
Definitely. And Rosa, in your experience, what do you think helped inspire or change the students that you saw that were more shy, that had a harder time? What do you think made the difference for them?
For me, the difference personally was knowing what to speak about. At the beginning, if you bring someone, like, speak to me about astronomy, and they never even understood what astronomy is, they would struggle. But when you ask them about something they're interested in, they know, they have made research about, they are passionate about, that's going to be easier. So that's what I did through I Speak. I gave them the subject matter. I gave them the knowledge. They already knew what exactly they are speaking about. So when I ask you to speak about something you understand, well, trust me, you're going to do a wonderful job. So if you feel like you can't speak about a certain topic, then get some knowledge, get educated, do some research. Trust me, the next time that subject is brought up in a conversation, you will do a wonderful job. So for me, that's the key.
I love it. And I think more ideas for the audience, how you can expand, your subject knowledge about an area. You can look up speeches about it, you can look up news articles, and there's a lot of research that when we read, it expands our vocabulary as well. So really reading through, paying attention to different words, listening to news reports. And even if you don't understand all of it, or not all of it sticks, something will. And then it will expand what you can talk about in your speech.
Yeah, you have to dip a finger in every pie in order to be well-spoken in everything.
We need swaya a little bit.
Yes, swaya.
Karima asks, do you think nowadays audiences would be interested in listening to speeches?
Well, the millions of views
for sure.
TED Talks. Have you seen how many views TED Talks get? Millions. People are interested in speeches. We still listen. I watch every TED Talk that comes out. I turned on the bell. I'm subscribed. I'm like, please give me more. So I think a lot of people are interested.
Or even every time an influencer gives a short video, that's a form of a speech.
True.
So we're all listening to those every day. So
yeah, news, news interviews, all of these are like forms of speeches, and people still love listening to them. Podcasts, like people are listening. There's a value in hearing someone else's thought, and we all want to do that because we want to hear like another point of view or another side or someone who agrees with us.
Definitely. Kania Laref says, is repeating speeches good to have a conversation in English?
As
I
Megan,
think so, for sure.
Megan said she talks to herself in the mirror until she can't have it, and not like she's done with herself. So I fully agree with that. I film myself, which helps with timing and seeing myself. So like I film myself like 3 or 4 times, and when I'm happy with the result, I'm like, I'm done. So yeah, so it's good repetition. Like you will remember something, or like it's good for jokes. You know, sometimes the more you repeat, the more jokes you get, and jokes are good to grab attention. I'm a jokester myself, so I'm usually like finding the best. You know, where is the line? So that's what I do personally.
Yeah. And I think that repeating speeches, like for example, a speech that's already been given, is a great way to learn grammar too, because you look and see how sentences are constructed. They're a little bit more natural of a sentence that would be said in real life because all speeches are spoken. So sometimes, a sentence is constructed differently when it's for a long book. But I think it's a really great way to learn different grammar techniques that you'll use naturally when you speak.
Definitely. Like the more you like, it's as if you are reading to yourself loudly. You are repeating a speech, which means you will definitely pick up words, grammar, like pronunciation. It's an important thing to learn through speeches because you are listening to a word spoken in a native language by a native speaker correctly, which will help you a lot with pronunciation.
And Rosa and I were talking about this earlier today too, but one difference between a speech in English and a speech in Arabic is that, English isn't like Arabic where formal speeches are given in Fusha, or a very different type of language than you would use in day-to-day life. A speech in English is given the way that someone would just speak regularly. So it's a really good method to use to practice and learn to expand.
And Megan knows all about what's the difference between Fusha and Derja. Megan is one of the survivors of the difference between the two very distinctive languages. Yeah.
So you're saying I shouldn't practice and repeat Fusha speeches?
Well, Fusha speeches will not help you with your Derja at all. That's all I'm saying. It's not helpful.
Not even Shweya? Oh, man.
A little bit. I would say Shweya. Shweya is okay, but not that much. Like even in Algerian, like our Derja is very special. It's not similar to anything in the world. So yeah, it's very different. While English, maybe some words are more sophisticated in speeches, but at the end of the day, the language, the grammar, most of the vocabulary is exactly the same as if someone says it to their friend or in a speech, which makes the learning process easier and I think better.
I think so too. Rosa, I have a question. What is your favorite speech?
Oh my God. So I'm gonna say that I have many speeches I love and I really like, but one of my favorites is by this educator from the US. She happens to be also African American, and I think it's one of the things that it's inspired me to be a better educator myself as a teacher. I love teaching, but this woman really inspired me to become the teacher I want. Her name is Rita Peterson. She made a TED talk about being an educator. She was an educator for over 40 years, which is like mind-blowing to me. And she spoke about the importance of a human connection in education and how it takes for an educator to connect to their students to learn from them. She says something that resonates with me a lot, which is kids don't learn from people they don't like. And that really stuck with me. You know, it was just one sentence in one speech that truly changed the way I looked at education. So I want you to listen to maybe the last few minutes of her speech, because I think that's where she hit the nail on the head and she said everything that needed to be said.
All right, let's listen.
Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never absent. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationships. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know it. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
Wow. That's really powerful.
Like, this lady is a superwoman to me. Like, the whole speech is so inspirational. I wish that everyone on this like audience listens to her, especially if you're interested in education, bringing kids to the world. She says something in the middle that stuck with me, is like, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came into this world, and I will be somebody better when I leave. And for me, that's like inspiration, if it could be mentioned or described.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. I mean, I have chills. I think one technique that Rita uses is that she emphasizes different words. I was born to make a difference.
Yeah, she uses emphasis, repetition. She provokes emotion, which, as like a public speaker, someone who is making a speech, why do we make speeches? We make them to inspire thoughts, to inspire feelings, to inspire emotions, to inspire a better future. So provoking emotions is a key to making the speech. And that's why we like listening to speech. I could listen to her for 10 hours because she provokes something in me. She wants me to do something. There's an action that she wants me to do. So a call for action is another thing you should think about. There's always something to do. Like, this speech has an end goal. And that's why we listen, because we want the end goal. We listened to Martin Luther King when he wanted a dream, and that's what he wanted from us. And we wanted to make that reality. She wants education to be better. And I'm like, yes, I'm there for that. Please tell me more. So this is why it's the inspiration. For me, the inspiration is most important, personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Viewers, we would love to hear what you thought about the speech, what you think makes an effective speech. So feel free to put something in the chat, and we would love to hear it. Or if you have any questions about speeches, public speaking, put them in the chat.
So do you have a favorite speech other than maybe MLK and Rita now?
It's a good question. I don't know if I have a favorite speech. We were also talking earlier today about Amanda Gorman, and it's not a speech, but she does really amazing spoken poetry. So viewers, I encourage you to look up that speech. That's an interesting, spoken poetry is a different subject, maybe a good future in Nespeakiw, but it just uses language in such a unique way. So I think that can get me thinking a different way.
I fully agree with that. It
I know
provokes.
we wanted to share too, more people that you can look up their speeches, that you can learn from, especially during Black History Month. There's so many amazing Black Americans that you can look up their speeches that have had a really big impact on the United States. So recommend to look up speeches by Malcolm X, by James Baldwin, an amazing speech giver and writer. Barack and Michelle Obama are both really powerful and clear public speakers. Viola Davis has given some amazing speeches as well. So food for thought, more things that you can go look up after this.
Somebody in the comments mentioned Oprah Winfrey. Every time Oprah speaks, it's gold. That's my theory. And I think it's proven. I think I made the theory. I proved it already. So you guys just take it as a fact. Every time Oprah speaks to me, it's gold. Every time she expresses her ideas, I'm engulfed by her. Literally, the way she uses the words, the way she expresses her emotions. Like, I love how she speaks generally, and I love all her speeches personally.
Yeah, agreed. And another funny example from our viewers, Steve Harvey. Yes, I mean, even comedians, and looking at how they speak, what makes the speech funny. It is a very good way to learn English and be entertained at the same time.
Like understanding jokes is the other level of getting, like, understanding a language. Like, if you understand it enough to get the inside jokes and like some very specific humor, makes you like superior when it comes to understanding the language. So yeah, listening to these very funny people make very impactful speeches while achieving to be funny, like, to me, like, that's why I chose public speaking and not stand-up comedy, because I don't have to be funny all the time, but just sometimes.
Ooh, another great way to learn English from speeches is Oscar speeches.
Ooh. Yes.
And you get the bonus of very good fashion.
Yes. And like people, I remember the Oscar, like maybe it was the Golden Globes. There was an actress that said something. I don't even remember the show, but I remember what she said because it was so impactful. She said her dad always told her it's a good day to do something and to stand up. Well, today I did something and I stood up. And that's, to me, is like, oh my God, look, achieving something, get into that. So the Golden Globe is not about the award, but actually the achievement of doing something and standing up. So that's why public speaking, or like speaking or speeches, are important, because you stand up, you speak up, you tell the world your story. And that's what's more important.
Definitely. Another viewer mentioned Denzel Washington. It's another great public speaker.
Like with a great voice, like his voice is so deep and like nice and smooth, and like that's another very important thing, aspect of public speaking, which is to mind your tone. So being monotonic and speaking the same tone the whole time, what will happen? We will go to sleep, we will take a nap. But if we don't do that and we use our voices, the way God intended them to go up and down and express emotions, that will make us full of tone, and people will actually listen to us because we're not boring. The other thing is volume. You have to make sure that you project and people can hear you. The speed, again, is not very important, but you need to speak clearly enough for people to understand you. So if you think being super fast will be more impressive, well, I'm here to tell you it's not, because people need to understand you. So you need to speak at a speed where it's understandable by the people around you, or the people you intend to listen to you. So that's another aspect that you should be mindful of.
Amazing advice. And yes, to our viewers, 95% of how a speech is transmitted is actually how you say it. including the visual keys. It's not what you say. So don't get too caught up on the words actually of what you're saying, although of course they're important as we're looking at today. But other things like your body language, whether or not you're pacing around or if you're staying in one place, you're being steady. Are you using your hands? If you're using them, are you using them effectively, or are you just waving them around like me right now? Do you sound confident? Are you projecting? Can we hear you? Do you look nervous or not? Those are some of the most important aspects of speaking. If you're speaking virtually, which we do a lot of nowadays, especially in current times, are you looking right into the camera? Is there lighting around you? These are all great things to think about.
True. All of them are true. If I could add one thing is if you learn through speeches, you will learn to speak confidently. And I think confidence is key in speaking easily, because when you're confident and you're not second guessing yourself, speaking will be easier. It will be easier to achieve because you're not self-conscious. Half of the time where people are nervous, they are self-conscious. They are not willing to make a mistake in order to learn. And you will never learn. To me, making mistakes is the way to learning. I have never made a language mistake that was pointed out and corrected and made it again. That's a key learning experience for me. If someone points out a mistake and he explains it and then corrects it, that's the last time I'm making that mistakes probably. So that's what I tell people. Always speak up, speak your mind, make mistakes, and hope people around you will be able to correct you, because that's the best way to learn.
Definitely. And I think it's pretty fun to read a speech out loud, and as if it were your speech. I think that can feel very powerful. It's a great way to practice language and get some inspiration at the same time.
Yeah, it's using 4 skills in one setting. So you're writing, you're reading, you're listening, and speaking. God, that's the best way to learn, I think.
See, people, we're giving you the real secrets today.
All the secrets.
We have other great examples were mentioned. So more people that viewers, you can go and Google and look up their speeches. George Carlin, Ellen DeGeneres. So maybe this is giving you some ideas of people to look up.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm a big advocate of TED Talks. If you guys don't know about them, man, get ready, because there are so many and they are so good. So if you are interested in listening to speeches that are not made by very famous people that we all know, and sometimes they are made by famous people. A lot of stars are invited to TED Talks. But if you want to listen to real life people speaking about real life experiences and giving you the best life lessons, check out TED Talks. And there are TED Talks about every subject on earth. So whatever you like, chances are there is a speech about it. So go and check them out. There are many pages and you can find many speeches.
Yes. I like to start my day listening to an inspirational speech. It's a really powerful way to start your day.
For me, every workshop I've done, even virtually or in real life, I started with a quote. And I think a quote is a small part of a speech. So I like that. I like starting it with a quote that is remarkable. For example, the quote by Margaret Mead, which says that a change is made by a small group of thoughtful people. And I think that's the best thing. So I always tell people, you are the small group of thoughtful people, and this is the small room, let's change. So I think that's beautiful, honestly.
Love that. Viewers, thank you so much for joining us for Nespeakiw today. We talked all about learning English through speeches, both listening to speeches, reading speeches that have been given, historic, modern day speeches, using those as a way to learn about culture as well, and practicing and learning to give your own speeches too. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope this gave you some ideas, and we would love to see what you do with it. So we look forward to seeing your speeches one day, viewers.
Thank you very much, everybody. It was a pleasure to hear all your thoughts, and I hope we helped you a little bit with learning English.
Subscribe to U.S. Embassy Algiers here on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We have live programs like this every Wednesday on YouTube. So join us for our next speaker.